This episode of RSR is brought to you by Isotope, Native Instruments, SAE Institute, Spectra 1964, and Grace Design. These are tools that I use every day in my studio, from the Spectra 1964, STX 600, 100, and 100D, and Native Instruments Complete 15, to Isotope Ozone and RX, and the central hub for my studio, the Grace Design M701 audio interface. Follow the sponsor links in the show notes. Grab my free mixing course at mixmasterbundle.com, and remember to like this video and subscribe on YouTube because it's a great way to help support this show. Now, get ready to rock.
If you come to a Big Star Quintet show, you already love the music.
Yeah.
The music is already a part of your life. You know, it's been a part of your life for a long time.
Every song's a hit.
So yeah, you already have this deep connection just to the music. And, you know, I mean, the original Big Star Band only did like 12 shows.
Amazing.
You know, they didn't tour.
You guys have already done more?
We've done more shows than the original line, you know, the classic Big Star lineup did. So just to like be in the room with people that love the music as much as we do, there's an amazing transfer of energy that's going on.
Oh yeah, man, I remember.
And I remember your face. I remember you were smiling just like a 1,000-watt smile. It was, and that's amazing.
Yeah. Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Dreaming of a career in audio or the entertainment business? SAE Institute Nashville, in the heart of Music Row, offers hands-on programs where you'll learn on professional-grade gear with industry pros, learning through real projects, not just lectures, explore studio production, live sound, audio for film, and a whole lot more. Or take the entertainment business program to learn about contracts, promotion, and more. With diploma, associate, and bachelor's programs, there's a path for you. Book a tour today at nashville.sae.edu or call 615-244-5848. Howdy, Rockstars. It's your host, Lid Shaw, and welcome back to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today is Patrick Sansone, Grammy-nominated multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, producer, best known for his long-running role in Wilco, his work with the Big Star Quintet, and as co-founder of the beloved band, The Autumn Defense, with John Stirratt. Pat and I first worked together back in the early 2000s, including sessions for The Green Hour at Alex the Great, and Circles at my home studio, The Toy Box, which Pat famously named for me back when we did that, and that was back when it was actually in the house right here where the studio is. Since joining Wilco in 2004, Pat has become an essential part of the band's sound across albums from Sky Blue Sky to Cruel Country and Cousin, contributing guitars, keys, harmonies, productions, and arrangements. Outside of Wilco, he's produced and collaborated on projects for artists like Jonathan Wilson, Tapper Shep, and Robin Hitchcock recently.
Trapper Shep.
Oh, did I say that wrong? Trapper Shep. What is Tapper? Tapper was that video game where you had to pour beers back in the 80s. Right?
He has a brother who has played bass on his records named Tanner. So there's Trapper and Tanner.
While also releasing his own solo and photography work. Recently, The Autumn Defense returns with their new album, Here and Nowhere, and a U.S. tour, their first in over a decade. Please welcome Patrick Sansone to Recording Studio Rockstars, who's been on the show previously, but we're really thrilled to have you back. Are you ready to rock, man?
It is amazing to be back.
Dude, it's great to have you here, man. And it's how fun that we finally get to do this with video and a little studio. everybody sees how cool.
Did
you
we not
look.
do video last time?
No, this is the first time.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, I don't think I've had video
right,
yet for this.
Yeah, welcome to the modern
Unless
world,
I
man.
spaced out and we just did one, which happens.
No, I think you're
possible.
right. I think you're right.
Yeah. Now you've been crazy busy, man. I saw you. So I got to rewind a little bit.
Sure.
I was headed down to Costa Rica in April, and I was going to go on this long beach trip and everything. And just as I was, just like my first week there, I'm on a text thread with my friends out of St. Louis, Chris and Sean and Dave and all these buddies. And Chris is the one who years ago introduced me to Big Star, and a band who I'll admittedly, I didn't get it at the first 3 listens, and then it became my favorite band.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so they sent a message. They're like, Big Star's coming to Nashville, and they're going on tour. And I was like, holy shit! So I, from far away, I like scramble and I get my ticket. I buy the wrong ticket at the wrong link, so I paid twice as much as everybody.
Oh,
but
no.
it's all right. It's all right. It happens. I learned my lesson. And then I was like, great, we're all going to see the Big Star show. And then later, it's like, those guys are like, hey, when did you get your tickets, guys? And they're like, oh, they didn't.
Oh, no.
So then I was like, oh, man, what happened?
Did they get in?
They didn't come. They didn't come, but I came. But anyway, my point is I was so excited about seeing the Big Star show, which wasn't till middle of the summer, January or July.
Right.
And I got to come see you play right here in East Nashville.
Yeah.
And it was off the hook good.
Oh, thanks, man.
It was so good,
That
man.
was a really great night for me, for all of us. I think we all really enjoyed that show.
Yeah.
And for me, just to finally be able to do that in my neighborhood was incredible, because we've been doing Big Star Quintet shows since 2023. And we've done 2 tours of Spain. We've played in the East Coast. We played on the West Coast, but we hadn't played in Nashville. So to finally do it in my neighborhood was great, because I know like you and so many of our friends and musicians around here that adore that music. And that's really what those shows are. It's just a celebration of that music.
Big time. You guys did such a good job of presenting it that way, I thought. Really, really good. It's quite a superstar lineup in the band, and of course, Jody Stevens is the sole remaining member of Big Star.
That's right. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And luckily, I had gotten a chance to do an interview with him back when I started the podcast.
Oh,
I went
right.
to Ardent.
Oh, you did it at Ardent.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was really fun.
Isn't that great?
It was great. He's such a sweetheart. He walked in the room. He's like, hey, how's it going? He's like, so remind me, what is this thing that we're doing? I was like, okay, awesome. This is what it's like when you interview a rock star.
Well, he's such an amazing ambassador for Ardent.
Yeah.
And that legacy and Memphis in general, and he's just such a warm, wonderful presence,
Yeah.
that it's, Ardent. His relationship with Ardent over the years is so unique and so special. I mean, he still goes there. I don't think he's I don't think he's actually an employee of Ardent anymore, as he was for decades. But he still goes there almost every day.
He finally doesn't have to look at the spreadsheets anymore.
Right. But he still goes there every day, and the Big Star drum set is set up there, and he goes there
awesome.
and he practices.
Oh, that's killer.
Almost every day.
That's killer. You could tell when you guys played the show, I was just like, I was really amazed at his level of endurance and athleticism and, just enthusiasm and excitement and calmness at the same time, And so you could see that. And I mean, this is a guy who's 70s or 70s?
He's in his early 70s.
In his early 70s.
Yeah.
And he just he could have been almost a teenager up there, playing.
It's incredible. I mean, for me to be such a fan of that music, to have that music be so important to me in my musical journey, my musical development, my discovering that music when I was in my teens and having such a deep connection with it, because I grew up in Mississippi, just a few hours south of Memphis, where that music was made. And so to discover it as a teenager who was already obsessed with the Beatles and the Who and the Kinks and kind of living in this dreamland where I was, growing up in Mississippi, but living in this fantasy world where I was hanging out in London in the mid-'60s, to discover Big Star and realize, oh my God, this music was made just a few hours north of where I'm from.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've been to Memphis. I've never been to London, but I've been to Memphis. So it was deeply important for me. And to hear that music and, in the 80s, which is when I discovered it as a teenager, and feeling a bit, out of step maybe with...
Yeah, what was it? How do you think Big Star sat with the world in the 80s?
Well, that's when I think a lot of people discovered it, because those records had been reissued on I can't remember the label.
And so this is what's funny. Like at that age for us too, it really seemed like I don't know, the times and the differences in the decade. Really probably seemed like old music that was being rediscovered. But when you look back on it now, you're like, wait, what was it, like 6 years or something?
Yeah, it was only 10 years before. I mean, probably the same amount of time between this podcast taping and the last time I was on your podcast, but it seemed like, oh my God, it was like ancient history.
Yeah. You really felt like you needed a pith helmet as you listened to it, right?
Well, it was amazing. And like I've said at some of the shows, in a way, it kind of, discovering that music kind of gave me permission to be who I was as a teenager and interested in all this, kind of 60s music, and gave me permission, said like, oh yeah, okay, you can be from the South and still be cool. Maybe, you can, because I would look at the album covers and just see how cool they looked, Jody, kind of still looks the same, but, these guys just looked like the coolest cats, and they were making this brilliant music, in the South. And I think also, REM had a big part of this, because I think probably maybe the first time I ever saw Big Star in print or heard about Big Star as a band was probably an interview with somebody from REM, because they were flying the flag for Big Star in such a big way in the 80s.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't really know that.
Oh, yeah. Mike Mills and Peter Buck especially, because they were record nerds, they were record collectors who formed a band.
And Athens was a real, probably had a killer record store and all that stuff, right?
Where Peter worked.
The old guy who worked in the record store is now in the band story. And how many of those exist?
Well,
out there,
and I've told this story before. For the first time I got any Big Star music, there was a record store in Jackson, Mississippi called Bebop Records. It's kind of legendary, in Mississippi, because they had a underground label section, and that's where you'd go to buy any of your weird records, So I would find a way from Meridian, Mississippi over to Jackson, which was about an hour and a half away, to buy records. And there was one of those record store trips where I think I took my I picked out my pile, which was probably Husker Du and the Replacements and some other, something on SST or whatever.
Yeah.
Took it over to the counter, put my stack on the counter, and the record store clerk looked at me, and he just went and grabbed a copy of Big Star's Third and put it on my pile.
No, that's amazing, man.
And I had heard about Big Star, like I say, probably through these interviews with REM. And I went home, and Big Star's Third, to be the first one that you encounter. It's a heavy piece of work.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to it late at night in my bedroom, probably that night on headphones, and it just blowing my mind.
Yeah,
blowing my 14-year-old mind.
What a great record too.
And it has that record has influenced so much of what I've done since.
Yeah. Well, so Chris King, he was the one who introduced me to Big Star, and he was always a super fan. And when we've been making records here, he recently reconnected with Carl Marsh.
Oh,
and so Carl's been over here to hang with us here down by the studio during one of our recording weekends. And Carl, of course, did arranging I guess I don't know if he did all the arranging. I don't know quite all the details.
He did all the string and woodwind arranging on Big Star's Third.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant. I mean, he was 21 years old or something, and those arrangements are just amazing.
Yeah.
I've gotten to meet him, and he's conducted the strings at a few of the larger Big Star ensemble shows. Where
and didn't he do something recently with REM as well?
Yeah, I mean he still arranges. I mean I think Big Star's Third was maybe his first.
That's not a bad breakout album.
Yeah, I think that might have been his first. And I think he was invited in because he knew Jody somehow.
Yeah.
I might be wrong about that, but
Did he suggest to the guys a renaming of the album? He's like, guys, considering it's my first, could we call this Out of the Gates?
Right.
Just in honor of me.
Well, there is a great story about, there was a song, there's a song on the record called Stroke It Noel.
Yeah.
That had a different title, but when they were recording the strings, Alex was so inspired by one of the cello players whose name was Noel, so he retitled it Stroke It Noel.
Cello is definitely more stroking than violin.
Right.
I don't know. Violin is it's different. I don't know. It's different. Cello hurts, man. I took a month of cello, and I was like, Mom, Dad, my wrist hurts.
Yeah. I took a cello course in college too. I didn't last, but much respect for all the cellists.
Too much stuff to haul around. Guitar's big enough, right?
Yeah.
Well, so it's interesting. So growing up in Meridian, which, you, of course, came out of we've talked about this before, too, but your dad ran the theater there, I think, or something like that. Right? Well,
he didn't run the theater, but he booked shows there. There's a beautiful old theater in downtown Meridian, my hometown, that holds about 1,600 people. It was built in the 1920s, and it's kind of, it's an old movie palace, sort of ornate, early 20th century theater, kind of like the Sanger or the Fox, but smaller version. And I kind of grew up there. My dad started promoting shows in the late 60s. Like, have a great photo of him with Glenn Campbell. One of his first shows was he booked Glenn Campbell in 1968 to play in the high school. I think in the high school gym or auditorium. Amazing. Buck Owens was an early booking, and he loves entertainment. He loves music, and he was a bit of a performer himself in his younger days. But he he wanted to start bringing entertainment to our hometown, and he booked a annual festival that would be a month long in the spring. On the weekends, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, there'd be a show in the month of April, I think, and this was a big thing for me when I was a kid because I got to see a lot of legendary performers, very close, like watching on side stage and seeing people like Ray Charles and Roberta Flack. And
that's amazing. And then when I think of promotion, I remember, sort of learning this at one point, but concert promotion, it can be a really risky kind of venture, right? Because you're putting this whole thing together. You have to assemble so many moving parts. You've got to make promises to people for guarantees, but then there's nothing's guaranteed until you sell the tickets.
Sponsors.
Yeah. I mean, did your dad just was he just a ballsy guy? Was it?
Well, it really fit his whole personality and just kind of everything he's about. I mean, he is, such a people person. Yeah. And knew everybody in town and was very, loved and had a big personality and he just loved it, He and I kind of think of him when I think back on kind of how he operated. It's kind of like Kermit the Frog on the Muppet Show. How it's like Kermit's backstage and he's telling he's wrangling all the characters and getting people out. That was kind of my dad.
That's awesome.
And I would go down to the theater with him on show days. I'd go down there at 9 a.m. when the stage crew would arrive to start getting things going and help, be there in the ticket office with him to sell last minute tickets and watch the performers show up and set up and do their
So you
sound
felt
check.
at home. You feel at home in a theater and in a stage setting, right?
It was so much a part of my growing up. I just thought that was normal.
Native Instruments now brings you Complete 26 with powerful instruments, synthesizers, and creative tools to help you make music faster and stay inspired. The legendary Absynth 6 is back with evolving textures and experimental sounds, while Contact 8 gives you the tools for chords, phrases, and arrangement right inside your workflow. With Massive X Guitar Rig 7 Pro, session guitarist instruments, and premium tools from Isotope and Brainworks, Complete 26 gives you everything you need to create in any genre. Go to nativeinstruments.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off.
Life
Do you feel like that influenced your path a little bit? Like, do you think,
absolutely.
had you grown up around a studio, you might have spent more of your time in studios, or do you feel like you ultimately found it seems like you found a great balance of being on stage and being in studio.
Well, there was also a recording studio in my hometown where I started working when I was about 15 or so.
Look at you go, man.
So there was one recording studio in Meridian. And
when I was 15, I was just like, can we get more games for the Atari 2600?
Well, I was doing that too, but yeah, I was in a cover band that got into the Battle of the Bands. I was in this band with a bunch of older guys. I was listening to, like I say, Big Star and REM and Husker Du.
And like with guitar lessons, any help learning how to play these songs? Or from your dad even? Did he play guitar as well?
Well, he didn't play. But my grandmother was an amazing musician.
Right.
She was a piano player and an painter and just a creative soul. My mother was a singer and sang with groups around town. So I just grew up around this appreciation for performance and music. It wasn't even questioned,
Right.
But yeah, Battle of the Bands, we had to go in. We had to provide a tape to get into the Battle of the Bands. So we booked an afternoon, a couple of hours at the one studio in town, which was above a drum shop. And I had a synthesizer. I was maybe one of the few people in town that had a synthesizer at that time. So I came in with my synthesizer, and because I had a synth,
everybody liked you.
The studio owner was like, "Oh, well, I'm actually." He was trying to get into like doing local jingles and that kind of thing. So he started hiring me to come and help him do jingles for local businesses and demos for people. So I kind of was able to get a lot of studio time as a teenager, and just getting comfortable being in a studio and working with lots of different kinds of artists.
Now, were you way into the creating of the sound with the synth, or were you more into the creating of the harmony and figuring out how to play stuff?
Both. I mean, I was, I had been taking piano lessons since I was about 6 years old or something, so I was already playing.
Yeah.
Around the time that I got the synth, I think I had stopped taking piano lessons because I had picked up a guitar and discovered the Beatles, and just kind of my piano practicing kind of went out.
Just imagine
went out the
if you
window.
stayed with the piano, you wouldn't have to feel like I need this piano and that piano and that piano and that piano.
Right, I know. It's like just to like show up and like sit down at a piano and have
the piano's already waiting for you. Exactly.
But yeah, so that was, there was. It's interesting to think back on those days. Meridian, small town, but it had a musical. It had a real musical life to it. Peavey Electronics was based there.
Right, that's right.
So a lot, I had a lot of friends in high school that worked at Peavey. Went on to work at Peavey. Like a lot of the musicians I knew in town.
Does Peavey still exist? Are they still?
Yeah, it still exists. Yeah, it still exists. I'm
not always up to speed on that, but so many cool amps. Out of Peavey,
they're starting to reissue a few of their some of their small practice amps.
Oh yeah,
that were everywhere. I mean, every household in our town had.
They were
one.
just so durable too. There's a lot of solid state, but they also make tons of cool tube gear too. Obviously,
I realized something in the last couple of years that kind of blew my mind. I'm a huge Who fan. Pete Townsend's one of my musical heroes, and I've seen these photos of Pete in the studio in like '78, around the time he's making an album called Rough Mix, record he made with Ronnie Lane, and like some of the like the late, like the late '70s era Who stuff.
Right. Is that like Bob O'Reilly and the
that was
synth and stuff?
That was earlier. That was the early '70s. Who's Next? But we're talking more like Who Are You, and then like the first album with Kenny Jones on drums.
Is he still
like
sitting next to the Neve BCM10 console in his little demo studio?
I love those photos of him.
Yeah.
But there are these great pictures, and he's like, and I've seen them my whole life. And he's playing a Gretsch, and there's a Tweed guitar amp next to him that I just always assumed was a Tweed Bassman or something.
Right.
And it was a Peavey.
No way, that's awesome.
Peavey made an amp in the late '70s. I think it was called the Classic, which they later in the '90s made a great tube amp called the Classic. But they were making an amp in the '70s called a Classic that was kind of based on Fender design, and that was his main studio amp. All those years, I had no idea that my guitar hero was playing a Peavey.
Yeah, that's great. There was when I went to high school, and I had a buddy who played guitar who could teach me. Oh, here's how you play Purple Haze, by Hendrix. He had a Peavey Striker 100 ST. Is that what it was? That's also the name of the. I don't want to mix up the first hockey neck guitar I had, but maybe it was this Peavey 100 or something like that ST. And it had the phaser effect in there, and it also had this great distortion. These solid state distortions that I remember thinking
they called it saturation.
It just sounded like granules of sand or something. It was really cool.
It was real powdery. It was a real powdery kind of smooth. Even though it was a solid state, it was. I know that sound very well. I mean, my first amp, of course, was a Peavey. I went down to the Peavey plant with my dad because my dad had a relationship with Hartley Peavey because of the theater. Because Peavey would host these employees only sort of secret shows.
Yeah.
In the theater, and they had Journey one year and Marshall Tucker Band one year.
That's awesome.
And it wouldn't be open to the public. It was just for the Peavey
But you
employees.
get to see it. You're seeing all this stuff growing up.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And so we went down to the Peavey plant, and I think my dad gave him the use of the lights and sound for free in exchange for giving his son
in exchange for leaving the lights and the sound there in the theater afterwards. No, giving your son a Peavey.
giving me a Peavey guitar and an amp. So that was my first amp and guitar.
Groovy. So fast forwarding a little bit, because we've talked about some of this stuff, although it's always fun to re-talk about it. Playing with Big Star Quintet, Jody Stevens, John Auer, you, Chris Stamey,
and Mike Mills.
Playing. Yeah, and what an amazing lineup of people. Many of whom I knew, some were kind of new to me. But John was from the Posies, right? So he wasn't right. Wasn't he also part of the Big Star reunion that happened back in like '93?
He was, yeah. So he was in Big Star,
right?
The '90s version of Big Star with Jody and Alex Chilton. So yeah, it's incredible. I mean, and I was a big Posies fan in the '90s. So to be on stage not only with Jody at the drums, and be that close to the source of that music, but also to be making music with John Auer, who I am a fan of his work. He's amazing. I listen to, Posies made a record called Frosting on the Beater that I listened to so much.
Such a great record.
Influential record for me.
Yeah, a great album.
And Chris Stamey, who, I've been a fan of for years and years, and who is part of the Big Star story. He played with Alex in New York in the '70s, just after Big Star. And Chris Stamey had a small record label that he ran out of his apartment in New York in the '70s, and it was Chris Stamey that released Chris Bell's single "I Am the Cosmos" and "You Are Your Sister," you and your sister, in 1978, just before just before Chris Bell died. So Chris Stamey has been a part of the story, in a big way. And Chris Stamey is close friends with Mitch Easter, who
Nice.
Mitch Easter produced the early REM records, and they were two of the biggest Big Star fans at the time that those records came out. So,
and didn't he also do, am I remembering this right? They did like Teenage Fan Club or something like that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Another cool sounding record.
So they're, there's so many amazing sort of connections, the thread kind of flows through it all in such an amazing way.
A lot of that's a Southern thread too.
It is, yeah.
And you mentioned that too. And I guess one of the things that I wondered about is, did you ever feel like that was, did you ever feel sort of sheepish about being from the South growing up in music or something?
Well, there was definitely a feeling of, growing up in Mississippi in the 80s, of feeling like everything that I'm interested in and everything cool is happening way far away, somewhere else. Being interested in all this like 60s music. First of all, I'm immersed in music made in 20 years before.
Yeah.
And then, like MTV, so much of that music that I liked was being, it's English music, and it was easy to feel like I'm just kind of left behind down here in this weird corner of nowhere.
Yet LA, why isn't LA considered the South? It is Southern.
But like I said, like discovering Big Star and also REM, I mean, this was big for a lot of us in the South, a lot of us Southern weirdos who, and our friend Will Kimbrough, who, his band, Will and the Bushmen, was huge for me.
Will, you're still due on the podcast, by the way.
What? He hasn't been
He
over?
hasn't been on yet. No.
And, he was a hero to us because Will and the Bushmen were a working band that had records out and, were playing the circuit, and they were great. So I think things started to happen that gave me and other Southern musicians some permission, like I said, and just, there started to be a feeling that things can happen down here. And then like Athens, Georgia, Chapel Hill, these kind of started to become like real, sort of centers of like a Southern bohemia. Yeah,
big time.
So by the time I got to college, that was kind of already established.
Well, yeah, Chapel Hill and what was coming out of that area too became where cool music was coming from.
Right,
the college, late 80s into 90s.
Yeah, the college radio stations, the small labels, and that whole circuit that really kind of introduced what then happened in the 90s with the Alternative Nation. It was all part of that same story.
I like that, an Alternative Nation. Was there any element of playing and sharing a stage with these guys and making music with them that was just like a little bit nervous for you?
I wouldn't say nervous, but very exciting. I mean, it's really, I really feel so fortunate, and so it's an emotional thing. I think it's emotional for all of us, and it's emotional for the audience as well, because this music. If you come to a Big Star Quintet show, you already love the music. Yeah. The music is already a part of your life. It's been a part of your life for a long time.
Every song's a hit.
So you already have this deep connection just to the music. And, the original Big Star band only did like 12 shows.
Amazing.
They didn't tour.
You guys have already done more?
We've done more shows than the original line, the classic Big Star lineup did. So just to like be in the room with people that love the music as much as we do. Yeah. There's an amazing transfer of energy that's going on.
Oh yeah, man, I remember.
And I remember your face. I remember you were smiling just like a 1,000-watt smile. It was, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, the joke that I tell is that when we went to Spain, or the first time we went to Spain, it's like it was incredible. Like we're playing this music and I see 50-something year old men just openly weeping, and then there's the audience, So
no, that's great, man. That's great. I love it.
So just the point is, it's emotional for us.
Yeah,
it's emotional for the audiences, and I love it. I mean, one of the many things that I love about it is that it's wonderful that Jody is able to sort of receive all this
big time
love for this incredible music that he made with his friends, when he was in his 20s.
Yeah.
I think he was 21 years old when they made the first Big Star record.
He stayed on the front line of keeping it alive through Ardent Studios as well, and keeping Ardent, alive and thriving all this time. So keeping that history as an actual location going in Memphis.
Yeah.
And Ardent's a cool place. You walk in, just the history in the walls and the hallways, and you're just like, oh man, this is cool.
A lot of amazing music made there.
I'm so happy that we have that. You can see even up there, that's Leon Russell's studio in Oklahoma.
Yeah,
and so I had Teresa on recently. We were talking about reviving the studio, making the book. And, going down to Muscle Shoals and discovering that, and Memphis, of course, figured it out a minute ago,
Well, Memphis has several classic, incredible. I mean, Royal and I mean, it's an incredible.
Stax.
It's an incredible. It's still an incredible music city.
So, but it's just so exciting, and so I'm very excited that hopefully this kind of, that benefiting from the museum culture, the tourist culture and appreciation means that a lot of these things will stay alive, and you'll be able to just like tour the country, visiting, the music studios and all these locations, stuff like that. I think it's exciting.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that obviously we've lost a lot of classic recording studios in the last 10 years, but there are still some greats still there.
The new iZotope RX12 is here, bringing powerful new AI tools to help you repair and improve your audio faster than ever. RX12 introduces scene rebalance for separating dialogue, music, and sound effects, plus Stems View for visually editing stems inside your session. You can clean up noisy recordings, remove bleed, rebalance mixes, and automatically trim silence from long audio files in seconds. Whether you're producing music, editing podcasts, or working in post-production, RX12 helps you fix the unfixable fast. Go to iZotope.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off. Well, it's interesting to think that the big places like New York, LA, these urban centers where music happen, those are the most likely, they're the most at risk to keep that studio culture alive. Nashville's done a pretty good job of it. Of course, we have RCA, and then of course, like the museum tourist culture. It's not the same location, but things re-show up in a museum setting. So maybe that will exist. But to the point of being from the small town, it's almost like there's a better chance that the small town can convert that studio, keep it open, and keep it alive as a museum.
Have you ever been to Clovis, New Mexico, to the Norman Petty studio?
No, I don't know anything about that.
Well, that's where the Buddy Holly stuff was recorded. Norman Petty was the producer that produced those Buddy Holly tracks. And that studio, I mean, it's a tiny, it's a tiny town out in the, it's a destination. I mean, you have to drive, a few hours from anywhere to get there.
Wow.
But man, you walk in and the Celeste is there from, and a lot of the original Altec gear, and it's amazing. You walk in there and it's incredible that it's still standing.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Well, it's exciting times, man.
Yeah.
Now, playing with Big Star, and we got lots more to talk about, so
Yeah.
I'll try and get through some of these questions. But talk about choosing the right guitars for stuff you were going to do. I mean, your ability to play those shows, I mean, I got to be honest, man, you didn't just join the band and contribute. You joined the band and you really shined up there, man.
Oh, thanks.
So everything, I was even asking you, I'm like, dude, how do you sing those high notes all night long and then do it again tomorrow? So maybe talk a little bit about, all the challenges for you of, even just like choosing the gear, having something that sounds right, and then also being able to, mimic the performance or do whatever, make it original or honor the original.
Sure. Well,
do it every night.
Actually, you asked me earlier about nerves attached to the band, and actually now that you're framing it this way, I was a bit nervous going into the first Big Star Quintet tour, because the history for me with it is that I have been playing shows with the larger Big Star ensemble since 2010.
Wow, okay.
Because I was invited. Chris Stamey started to produce these performances specifically of the Big Star's third album, which is the album that has all the string arranging and the horns, and he started doing that around 2010, and he would hire a string section and woodwinds, and he had a core group of musicians, because he's from North Carolina. He had a core group of musicians that were part of his musical community in North Carolina, that would perform the songs, trade off singing, and bring in guest singers, because they started doing it in different towns.
That's great.
The first one I did, I think, was in Austin. So, different people would come and sing. We did one in L.A. in, I think, 2014 or so, and Amy Mann did a song, and Susanna Hoffs, and
Cool.
Jason Faulkner was there. So that kind of thing. And they were super fun. We did one in Spain. We did one in L.A. a few years later. Jeff Tweedy was there, and lots of different people, and that was filmed and released as a concert film. So I had the history of doing that for about 10 years, off and on, with Chris and the large ensemble. But when it was time for the 50th anniversary of Big Star's first record, #1 record, there were some offers put forth to perform that record in its entirety. And Jody wanted to do it, but he didn't want to do it in that form. He didn't want to do it as a
guest singer thing,
large review with lots of people coming and going.
Right.
He wanted to put together a band that would perform that music as a band.
That's great.
So that it would have a center. And he chose me.
That's awesome,
which I still am just incredibly flattered.
How connected had you guys been at that point already?
Connected.
You'd met maybe
I mean,
plenty of times,
I had been performing with him for over a decade, and we had become friends.
That's one of those Lidge moments.
Well, I mean, but it was a different thing. I mean, it was a very it connected to those previous shows, but a very a different thing. And because with the larger show, even though I'd be part of the core band, I would sing like maybe 3 songs and play on a few different things. The pressure was not as great as having to be on stage for 2 hours, sing maybe
in the spotlight the whole time.
Maybe sing 10 songs. We're all switching off. Cover all those guitar parts, which if you're a Big Star fan, those guitar parts. If you're coming to a Big Star Quintet show, you probably play guitar. You probably know the guitar parts, or at least have listened to them thousands of times. Yeah. So it did hit me when I was preparing for this first tour, that I had to do my homework, and I wanted to honor that stuff, because
it's a lot of homework, though. It really is.
It was, and
so what are there? Do you get? some insider knowledge that helps you arrive at the right answers for things, or do you have to just like drop the needle like the rest of us? And
it's kind of both.
What's that? Is that two guitars or three guitars?
Definitely. Looked up a few YouTube, people that had already done the work. Well, but we were lucky in that Chris Stamey did have access to a few multi-tracks.
Right.
So there were a few, not the majority, but there were a handful of things where we had multi-tracks and had separated guitar parts, which digging into this stuff for both Number One Record and Radio City really gave me an even deeper appreciation for just how good of a guitar player Alex Chilton was, and Chris Bell.
Yeah,
both amazing guitar players, and when you get to Radio City, the guitar playing is just so unusual.
Yeah,
so kind of singular to him, and we've had many discussions about like just wondering what was influencing him to come up with some of his voicings and some of his parts. It's really pretty fascinating.
Now, when you guys played, you were playing. You maybe had Strats and Tellys, is that right? Up on stage, and then John had the SG.
Yeah, John plays an Epiphone SG style guitar, which has the pickup. A
P90 pickup.
P90s, but can set them out of phase to kind of get that stratty sound. But Chris Bell, a lot of his guitar parts were done with a Gibson 330 with P90s.
Which is the hollow body, right?
It's a hollow body, yeah. It's basically the Beatles Epiphone Casino guitar, but it's the Gibson version. And but there's a lot of Strat. When you think big star guitar, you kind of think chimey Strat, right? Because there's so much of that on.
There's a lot of high end in big star.
Yeah, a lot of chiminess. So
I'm hearing stories that John Fry would, when they were cutting the lathe, he'd sit there and like spray on it with a Freon or something.
Right.
My version of the story is probably bullshit, but there's hearing stuff like that just to get the most high frequeny on the record.
He was a genius. John Fry was an engineering genius, and had so much to do with why that music sounds the way it sounds, obviously, and has such a timeless quality. He was the fifth member of Big Star. He was their George Martin.
And I don't want to derail you, but to that point, have you found your absolute favorite medium to listen to Big Star? Is it particular vinyl prints that you've heard where you're like, God, that's the best version of that I've ever heard?
No, I don't have. I don't own an original Ardent press.
It's new territory you get to explore still.
I did just score a few original Ardent 45s when I was in Memphis a couple of months ago. They had just found a stash of them at Ardent because Ardent is going through a renovation.
Oh, cool.
And they found a box of original Ardent 45s of like In the Street, and I was able to score a few.
I feel like such a schmo. I just remembered that I forgot to bring up the show poster, which you guys all signed. I'm supposed to have that in here and go like, look, here's the show poster. Yeah.
But yeah, it's there's a great place in Memphis called the Memphis Listening Lab.
What a cool.
Have you been there?
Did
I send you there?
I've been in there for a quick visit, and I think I maybe revisited it once, but I have gone and looked at the website and I've talked about it before, and I can't wait to go like actually sit and listen.
It's
go ahead and describe it, because it's just like every city should be doing this.
Well, it's connect. So the Memphis Listening Lab is in a large complex in Memphis called Crosstown Concourse, which is an old Sears. It was the Sears distribution center for the South, and it's a massive building. It's an entire city block.
Like multi-story warehouse style.
9 stories tall. It's an entire city block, basically. And about 10 years ago, they started the process of repurposing it because it was abandoned for decades. Just a big empty behemoth,
Yeah.
And it's been repurposed into an arts-centric kind of contained village that houses Matt Ross Spang's great recording studio, Southern Grooves, is on the second floor, which is right across the hallway from the Memphis Listening Lab, which we'll talk about in a minute. The radio station that I do my radio show for, WYXR,
oh, cool, man,
is based there. And they have a 1,000-seat theater where Big Star Quintet has played a couple of times.
Cool.
150-seat listening room called the Green Room, where Autumn Defense played last week.
Amazing.
And a few restaurants, a coffee shop,
like a big like foyer, staircase area. I saw
and
classical kids come out and play like classical performances in there during a lunch break,
and places to sit, and
kind of a farmer's market,
free
down
Wi-Fi, and on the second floor like art exhibition spaces. But then there's 6 stories or so of artist in residence living, where they have artist in residence programs, or just residential lofts and things. So it's an incredible it's like this arts village in the middle of Memphis, and everything's kind of interconnected. And but the Memphis Listening Lab houses a record collection that was donated by a guy named John King, who was John Fry's best friend. So John King and John Fry were basically started Ardent together. And John King was a big record collector and had a collection of 40,000 LPs and 50,000 45s, and he passed away a couple of years ago.
Basically Mike Grimes.
Yeah. Yes.
When he was my roommate, no less. In our apartment.
Oh my God! So you lived in the Nashville listening lab.
I built shelves for his record collection. I was like, dude, I'll figure this out.
You know this guy.
Yeah.
I got to meet John King once. I stayed at his house years ago for when I was doing one of the Big Star shows, and I saw that record collection. Well, now it's housed in the Memphis Listening Lab, which is an incredible library that houses his collection, and they have private listening booths where you can just go there and basically look on their database to see what's there. They'll grab the record for you, go and listen to it. So it's an incredible learning resource, just, or if you're just a music lover and you want to.
But they've also got group settings. So they'll have everybody sits and listens to the same album together, and an Atmos listen.
They have incredible audiophile sound system. And I've hosted a few listening events there, kind of through the radio station, where they'll take an album that is made in Memphis that might be a lesser known record or kind of a lost album, and they'll invite an audience of, I think it holds about 80 people at max, to come and listen. We listen to the record together, and hopefully somebody who is involved with making the record can come and be there and tell stories about the making.
That's great.
And so it's
so much fun.
It's just amazing, and and Jody Stevens will come, and and I'll see people from the Memphis music world are there. It's really it's an amazing inspirational thing to do.
It's funny, Nashville probably has its various versions of that, but Nashville sometimes it's so overwhelming, the amount of music that's happening here, that it feels like it's whatever you're doing that feels special. There's something else special going on. There's
so much happening every day, all day long. But to bring it back to Big Star, you asked me where my favorite place to listen. I think my favorite listening experience of Big Star's first record is listening at the Memphis Listening Lab, because they have some original Ardent pressings.
Makes sense.
And to listen to them on their incredible sound system there in Memphis, just a few blocks away from where it was cut, where that story where you just were talking about actually happened, is pretty awesome.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Are you ready to launch your career in the audio or entertainment business? SAE Institute Nashville, right here in the heart of Music Row, offers hands-on programs to prepare you for the industry. From studio production and live sound to audio for film and a whole lot more. You'll learn by doing, working with professional-grade gear alongside experienced industry pros. If you're more into the business side of entertainment, SAE's Entertainment Business Program teaches essential basics like contracts and promotion to help you navigate the industry. With diploma, associate, or bachelor's degrees, there's a path for everyone. Plus, Career Services supports graduates as they take the next step. Want to see it for yourself? Immerse yourself in Nashville's exciting music scene and book a tour today at nashville.sae.edu or call 615-244-5848. Howdy, Rockstars. We're back now for the jam session, aka the second half of the show. I've got Patrick Sansone joining us here in the studio here at Ready to Rock Studios. Are you ready to jam?
Is that the name? Is that the name of where we're sitting right now?
Yeah. Are you ready to rock?
Oh man.
Yeah. I one of these days, you got to give me a shout out and drop it in the comments if it was you that recommended the name of the studio to me, because I've forgotten who it was. But I give credit to whoever suggested. I was like, that's a great name for it. So, what were some of your favorite songs to sing for that Big Star tour?
Oh man, that's a good question. I love the song "What's Going On."
Yeah,
AHN. It's just such a beautiful song. It's from Radio City, and I used to sing that song in a band. You know, one of my bands back in the 90s. So that's a really, I just think it's such a beautiful song. And You and Your Sister by Chris Bell is, I mean, that is just one of the most beautiful songs ever written.
Is that related to why? So my friend Chris would always refer to it as Big Star's third, Sister Lovers. Mm-hmm. Is that the actual title of the album, or is Sister Lovers a name that was sort of attached to the album?
I think, I am not sure of the actual story on this, but I think Sister Lovers was the intended title of the album when they made it. But they made the record and then it sat on the shelf for I think 4 years.
4, that's nothing. Because I still finishing a record that started 6 years ago.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I know time was different back then. But they recorded it.
It was the 1970s. Time was different back then.
Sister Lovers was recorded in 74, but it had its first release in 78, I believe. And it was released on a label in the UK, I think. I mean, the real Big Star aficionados, as far as that stuff goes, are gonna probably chime in and tell you the real story. But
please do drop a comment in.
But I think Sister Lovers was the intended title, but it became known as Big Star's Third because I think the label that issued it released it as Big Star's Third. So it was messy. Is the bottom line. And my first encounter with it at that Mississippi record store was a version of it that was released in the early 80s that has a blue cover with Alex's face on it that has a different track order than the original order. Oh, wow. And, there's a lot of people that was their first version of it that they encountered, like myself, that prefer that album.
Isn't it funny how
that track order? To me, that's the better track order. But
because that's the one, because you hear the end of one song and then the next one comes in and you always hear it that way after that.
Yeah, and it just becomes your experience with it.
Now, to that order or to that point, what have you learned about track order on albums and like? Because when you're making a record, you have a new Autumn Defense record out now. So talk about that, and then talk about putting the right order of the songs on the record. And are there universal considerations that do matter about what song happens and what follows it?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the established rules are. And I think a lot of times, and you've probably experienced this, where you finish the main tracking of an album and maybe you still have the fairy dust stuff to do, but you send everybody home with a with the tracking mixes, right?
The roughs in order. With search, sometimes alphabetical now that we're in the digital age, right?
But a lot of times, at the end of that, you just kind of put them in an order.
Yeah.
And it might seem random, but you're just going with your quick instincts.
Yeah.
And that kind of sticks around.
I know. Quick instincts are not random.
Right.
Rock stars. Quick instincts are the ones you're supposed to be listening to, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think with this new Autumn Defense album, I think that the order kind of came about pretty quickly in that way, and it just felt right and stuck around. I might have made a few tweaks here and there, but I don't know. I've had a few people comment on the flow of the album positively, and that makes me feel good because I still think of albums as albums, as a linear listening experience, and I think that if you can put a track order together that encourages that kind of intentional listening, then that's a success.
Yeah. I mean, that's certainly what happens with us when we do it. I'll do a rough mix, and I hate to say it, but a lot of times, so I use the Samply app, and I'll just upload everything there.
Yep.
I think you were using that too, right?
Yeah.
It's great. I
think it's kind of a game changer, Samply.
Yeah, but it just makes it so easy to have like this home base for what you just did, and then you're not like scratching your head. Where did I put that? Later too. You got the link. You can share it, and
you can put it in an order that actually flows, as if you're listening to an album. Like you're streaming an album. And so you can really feel like what that experience is going to feel like. And
you can pick a little image for the artwork
right
there and test it out for a while.
Yeah.
So it's really fun to be able to use that. But I'll put it in there, and sometimes it is defaulting to some alphabetical, and then later I'm like, I got used to it.
It's not too bad. Yeah.
Sometimes it works, But it's it's interesting to just the reminder that it's that combination of instinct in the moment, because there are decisions that we make when we're in the studio in the moment that are just can be so hard to come back to and rekindle the flames again later. I mean, don't you when you agree, it's like you go back to like, all right, we got to go do the overdubs again. We got to go do the rough mixes, or well, I know I can make the mix better, and you come back later, and it's just like, it's hard to get into the headspace.
It is, and you know how it is. You can overcook a mix, like it's so easy to go there, and I think I've gotten better about it. Just as I've done it more over the years of not doing that. Not to say that I'm an expert, and I certainly have, but a lot of times, you'll mix and mix and mix, and you'll carve and you'll fix, and then you hear that tracking rough that you originally sent everybody home with, and it's like, oh my God, there's the song.
Right, exactly.
There's the song. How do I get back to that? Something's not quite right. So how do you get back to that enough to still retain that magic, but still adjust the things that need to be adjusted.
It's a really interesting conundrum, because I know 100% about what you're talking about, and I'll mix something and then I'll play the rough, and I'm like, damn, that was the energy and the big boom bam of the song right there. And so then you want a little bit of this, a little bit of that, bring it together. And I wonder too, I'm always thinking about how that parallels in the world of visual arts, because I think there's so much we can glean from visual arts in sonic arts.
Oh, absolutely.
I just called it sonic arts.
You did, man. And
what we do.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. No, absolutely. I mean, I think the photography work that I've been doing.
Yeah, tell us all about that. So you had a new book out, I think. You had a new exhibition where you got to go actually exhibit. You're an exhibiting artist.
I have exhibited my photography.
And it's Polaroid?
Well, I made a lot of Polaroid photography in the mid to late 2000s, like 2006 to 2010, 11. I was obsessively making photographs with an old Polaroid camera. And in 2010, I released a book of 100 of those images that was connected to an exhibit that I had at our Wilco Solid Sound Festival. And so I was exhibiting 100 images at the Mass MoCA Museum.
Amazing.
And I decided to do a book to go along with it. And then I did a second printing of that book in 2020. And sort of during that period of putting the reprint of that book together, and I had been asked to show some work in 2019, it just made me realize that I love making photography, because I had sort of stepped away from making film photography for a few years. But looking at this work and kind of looking through my own eye again just made me go, why am I not doing this? I love this. And I had started to really collect photography books and go to a lot of museums and look at photography. So I picked up the cameras again, but then I started shooting with 35 millimeter and medium format film. So I put the Polaroid camera down.
What camera body and lenses do you enjoy taking with you now?
Well, I have a few, but
And shooting in color or black and white?
I shoot color film, and I tend to shoot mostly slide film, because I just love the color of slide film.
And so when you do shoot in slide film, you actually print it as slides and then make prints from the slides.
Well, it's processed as a positive image, like you would project light through a slide. But I have those scanned, and then I make prints from digital scans from those scans.
Cool.
So it's a hybrid of analog and digital, very similar to the way I work in music production. It's a hybrid. I'm recording into the computer generally, mixing in the box, but I've started with vintage guitars and tube mics and analog outboard gear. Yeah. So I'm definitely not an analog purist, because I can't be really to do what I want to do. But the relationship between those two worlds is where I live. And similar with photography, I love film. I love the texture of film. I love the color. I love what slide film does with color, and that's just that inspires me. Tickles something in my brain that I want to see. But when I print work for exhibition, I use a printing process called Lambda, which is it's an actual photographic printing process of light exposing onto photographic paper.
Yeah.
It's not inkjet printing. It's not projecting ink onto paper. It's photosensitive paper
that you're projecting the slide.
Projecting from a digital image onto the paper. So it's a hybrid. It's digital C printing.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely a mirror of a lot of the way I work in music production.
Well, I know that slide film has this great look to it, because the shots for my studio, my friend Rick Hawkins actually came and took shots of my studio when I first made it, and he did all the studio shots in slide film, and so it's very like rich colors, very
paint-like.
Yeah, paint-like colors,
Which is
great oranges, stuff like that.
It just does a thing. I mean, I wish I could have shot in the Kodachrome days, because Kodachrome slide film, a lot of my favorite fine art photographers that worked in color, I mean, they were shooting Kodachrome, and it just has this very particular way of dealing with color that's very painter-like, which I love.
Now, you get a lot of opportunity in this process that you're talking about to still sort of tweak and dial in the colors in the printing process as well?
Well, yes, because once it's a digital scan and I've got it in Photoshop or Lightroom,
right, you can do stuff.
Just like in Pro Tools, you can do whatever you want to do, and I try not to do too much.
Right.
And so this is another parallel, like mixing. You know, when I'm working with one of these scans for the book or for printing, for exhibition, I really try to only do things in the computer that I could do if I was in the dark room. You know, if I had darkroom skills.
Have you done black and white printing too?
I've done black and white printing.
And burning?
Yeah,
it's so much fun.
A long time ago.
Cutting out pieces of cardboard.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Like
and it has everything. And that, you know, this is interesting to talk about because it is similar to me with mixing, because when you see a photograph of some classic photograph that you love, whether it's exhibited in a museum wall or in a book, there's no one version of that image, because it depends on when it was printed, how it was printed, who was doing the printing, what kind of manipulation that printer was doing.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes, you know, the photographer themselves would be very involved in that, or sometimes they just leave it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Kind of like, you know, mastering.
Yeah, or pressing the vinyl record.
Or pressing or cutting. I mean, there's a lot of steps. There's no, you know, I've seen, you know, a particular photograph by a photographer that I love in several different situations, in different books from different eras, in museums, and they're all a little different.
Yeah.
The color's a little different. Some contrast might be a little different.
I remember back when I was at Alex the Great when we first met, hearing that Steve Forbert, when his record was done, Rocking Horsehead, when we did that, and it went out to be just the CD to be pressed. They were pressed in different places, and it came back, and he sort of like approved of some CD pressings and not others. Like
Interesting.
He was hearing the difference, and everyone was like, really?
Well, this is the rabbit hole. You know, it's kind of, what is the definitive version of anything? You know,
this is the definitive version of this interview here, right now.
Absolutely.
Sorry you couldn't be in the room. If all of you could be in here while we're having the conversation, that'd be pretty awesome.
But when it goes to YouTube, will it be compressed? You know, and like which resolution are you going to be listening to?
Which edit will I hopefully not forget to take out?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's fun, man, because there's, you know, it's that process of being in the creative mindset and, you know, getting out of our own way. You know what I mean? Because we get in our own way with a lot of things we do. And it's cool to hear you talking about the ways that happens in the visual arts versus the sonic arts. Sonic arts that must be a name for something already.
Yeah.
I'll think of it later. It's probably a plug-in company, I'm sure.
Well, I was able to have a really great conversation with, one of my photography heroes. William Eggleston, who's such a a giant as far as color photography goes, and he lives in Memphis. He took the photograph that is the cover of Radio City by Big Star.
Didn't he also design speakers though? Isn't there Eggleston?
His son. One of his sons, William Eggleston III, designed the Eggleston Works.
Yeah.
Speakers.
Brian Murphy, who's been on the show and masters my records, he's got the Egglestons in his studio.
Bob Ludwig, when I went to the mastering session for Wilco's The Whole Love, which I co-produced, I went to the mastering session and I walked in and I asked Bob Ludwig what his speakers were, and he said, "Oh, those are designed by a guy named William Eggleston." And I was like, wow. Wait a minute, William Eggleston, the photographer? He's like, well, his son. And so, that was an amazing. That was an amazing connection as well. So, but I was able to speak with the photographer William Eggleston, and we had a wonderful conversation about photography and sound and music, and something that he said, which I've always sort of believed as well, is just talking about how, light and music, they're wavelengths, they're vibrations.
Yeah.
These are, it's a very mystical way to look at it, but, and he's a musician himself. So there is a musical quality in a way in his photography and in a lot of photography that I love. I think in talking about sort of what inspires me to make photographs, a lot of it is just being in the light itself. It's kind of like this meditational practice of just communing with light. And when the light is really special, my favorite light to make photographs in, it's almost like the light is singing.
Native Instruments now brings you Complete 26, loaded with creative tools for songwriting, production, mixing, and sound design. The big news is the return of the legendary Absynth 6, with evolving textures, cinematic soundscapes, and experimental sounds designed to spark new ideas fast. Contact 8 continues to be the center of the complete ecosystem, with built-in tools for chords, phrases, grooves, and arrangement to help keep you in the creative flow. With Massive X Guitar Rig 7 Pro, session guitarist instruments, Play Series sounds, and premium tools from Isotope and Brainworks, including Ozone 12 Elements, Complete 26 gives you everything that you need to produce in any genre. Plus, Native Instruments continues expanding NKS integration with complete control keyboards and machine hardware. Go to nativeinstruments.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off. Have you thought about the differences between sound and light, though, in terms of, because they're both waves, but with sound, the source, the instrument generates the sound, and then you're capturing it, and you want some of the reflections off of other surfaces, and then you don't want others. But with light, the subject has no light until you shine light on it and it bounces off the subject. It's interesting. So like the subject in visual imagery and photography and painting is needs the light to come from somewhere else first, whereas in sound the subject gets to generate. I'm not even sure what as I thought about it one day, I know there's something there. I'm just like verbalizing it just to figure out what it means.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's when I'm out photographing things, I tend, it really is about being in a state of mind.
Yeah.
And just being open to what is there. And I don't feel like, I'm not creating anything. I don't rent a studio and set up lights and my photography is not that. My photography practice is just wandering around in the world with a camera. Yeah. And
it was Observations or something?
The name of the book that I put out is called Noticings.
Noticings, right? Yeah, Noticings.
So it's kind of like this idea that there are these beautiful compositions that exist out in the world, and I'm just there to notice them and kind of put a frame around them. I'm not creating them. And so that the resulting photographs are kind of something that's even, outside of me. It is, like you say, it is different than me picking up a guitar and
creating something
and being the actual engine for this thing that comes out.
Yeah, it's fun. But like also just the the idea, I know when I work quickly in the studio, I can come up with a lot of good ideas that way. I also know that if I don't revisit and re-edit, I can not do full justice to some of those ideas. Mm-hmm. But I think that exists in that visual world too. Like when you're editing images, first of all, if you've ever had a great camera and you've taken shots of something, you come in and like, good Lord, I took a lot of photographs. And then you're like, oh, the real work begins now to just sort through them. Mm-hmm. So I learned that lesson. And there's a quickness that has to happen because so it's like there must be iterations. Like you work on them quickly and then you come back and you pick the best ones, throw everything else away. You got to have a much bigger eraser in photography than you do in audio. You know what I mean?
Well, and shooting with film too, that's one of the reasons I like working with film because it does slow me down.
Yeah.
And I'm also not taking I mean, I take a lot of
Right, I was
frames,
describing the digital camera for sure.
but film there is a certain, it makes me be a little more selective, although I do love the freedom of I try not to be censor myself too much in the moment.
Right.
So that is a balance. And also when I'm editing the images, I try not to do too much, and I try not to spend too much time editing. My edits really happen pretty quickly.
Right.
Because I want to stay.
But you can always come back and tweak the edit a little more later if you need to, right?
You can, but I try not to.
That's where it messes it up?
Yeah,
okay, all right,
it's that whole thing. And I think, I did a project, a musical project that I released 2 years ago, I think, which is an album of instrumental synth ambient pieces. Called Infinity Mirrors. And I think that record is really probably the most closely tied to my photography of any of the music I've done because of the way I did it. And that project came about really just as a personal creative exercise for myself. I didn't intend to release it, really. I didn't have any big plans for it. It happened because I had been working on a couple of records. And, I've got this collection of synthesizers that I've had for a long time, and I've acquired a few more, but I've kind of been carrying around some really cool synths for 20-something years.
Because they're awesome.
Yeah, and going back to when I was a teenager and I had that first synth, I had a Korg Poly 6 that I wish I still had. And I used to just spend time in my bedroom just blissing out with the headphones and just making sounds and just...
That's the toughest part about synths is sometimes you can make no music and hit no record button because it's so much fun to just listen to the notes and the sounds.
Well, exactly. I mean, I have amazing memories of just being in my bedroom as a teenager, just twiddling knobs and finding chords and just being in a state of play and very blissful state. So a few years ago, this was in 2017, I had been working on a handful of records and here in Nashville in my studio, and I would use a synth for a texture here or maybe a little counter melody there, but most of the music that I was producing or working on wasn't really synth based. Mm-hmm. But I would just use them for like little touches.
Yeah.
And then then you're mixing and then you solo one of those tracks and then you just hear that and I just go, man, I just want to live in this for a little while. Yeah. So I think I had a break and I was feeling a little like I was in a little bit of a rut with the stuff I was doing and just wanted to do something to get me out of my habits.
Yeah.
So I decided to set this little game for myself where I'd go down to my studio and I would basically just kind of randomly pick 4 things and turn on the computer, set up a session, and whatever happened with those 4 elements in that evening, that was it.
I like that idea. Because when we get that sort of by default in a way, or that's an accompanying feature of going into the studio with a group of people, mm-hmm. or going into the studio with only a weekend to record or something like that. Mm-hmm. You get that limitation by automatically, mm-hmm. and it's incredibly powerful. But to give ourselves our own limitation can be challenging sometimes. But I like your idea. It's like just bring certain instruments into the control room or into the space where you're going to record, and those are the ones you're using. I've seen guy made records with Lawrence Rothman, who is actually hopefully coming back on the show again soon. He's when at one point he took all the plugins we had and he was like, I don't want to see all these things. So it was like they all went into another folder and then let's only bring over the ones that we use. And I like that idea too. That could be a clever way for those of us who have all the virtual tools to narrow it down, because you don't have to throw away the stuff that you bought. You can just put it over here.
Yeah,
and just have a small collection for today.
Yeah, just kind of clear your space, your mental space or your studio space, just to allow you to just give you a little more room to roam.
Yeah.
And so I did that for myself. And I did 4 pieces, I just did that in 4 evenings over the course of a week or 2 weeks or whatever it was. That was in 2017. And then I just kind of put them away. I didn't revisit them. I knew they were there, but I was on to other things. I think, back on tour and back doing stuff. Yeah. But I just did that as kind of an exercise for myself. And then sometime in 2021, I think I was out driving around. This is during the pandemic time. And when I was out driving around a lot with my cameras, making photography on these, kind of wanderings, something made me think of them. I don't know what it was, but I just kind of went, oh, yeah, I remember those exercises I did. I wonder. So I happened to have them on in a Dropbox folder, and played them in the car. And I was really taken with them because, it was 4 years prior. I didn't really remember how I did them.
That's so crucial, man.
I didn't quite remember. I mean, I could go, oh, I think that's the Jupiter, and that's obviously a Whirly, but they felt very familiar.
Yeah.
Because I'd been through the experience of making them, but I wasn't so attached to them because I hadn't been laboring over them for months and months and knowing every molecule of every mix and micromanaging every detail.
Yeah, you were no longer in the process. I think about this, and it's related to that idea of when you finish a record, you're not satisfied with it. Sometimes you have to not listen to it for 6 months and then listen to it again, and all of a sudden you've kind of forgotten all the elements. And I think it's because when we're in the creating process, our job is always, how can we make this better? How can we make this better? How can we make this better? So you don't get the chance to listen to it fresh.
Absolutely.
Because you're having to always go, you just listen to the reference. Now you're going back into the control room to tweak it again.
Absolutely. And somebody, and I know this is true. This thing of when you've been working on a mix and you think you've got it at the spot and this is where it needs to be and you're really feeling good about it. And then somebody else comes into the room and you play that same mix, but there's just another human being that hasn't heard it yet.
Yeah.
And then you hear it in a whole different way. There's something about another.
That's a good reminder. Yeah.
There's something about somebody, and then your mind starts to go, well, what are they thinking? How are they hearing it? And then you don't quite hear it the same way as you were hearing it previously. It's just it's a weird phenomenon.
And to that point, have you learned to not sort of preface the hitting the play button with all the reasons why this isn't a good one yet? This is it's a rough mix. I just did this quickly, and all those kind of things.
Well, one thing and maybe we were doing this back in the day, but I definitely, one thing I'd like to do when playing a mix for somebody that I'm working with, or even just for myself, is turn the monitor off.
Right.
Just turn the monitor off.
Yeah. Press
play, and so that you're not just looking at it. You're not looking at a screen.
Yeah.
Why are you looking at a screen?
Yeah. Why does the same Pro Tools image that happens with every single record somehow represent this particular song?
Yeah, you know how it is, because you play something for people in a studio and there's a screen, so people just are going to look at the screen.
Yeah.
So that's just a habit I've gotten into over the years.
So do you just have an on-off switch that you kind of
just on the
access?
Monitor? Turn it off.
The other, because sometimes I've been in studios where you can't, I can't reach the monitor on mine, and I've explored ways where you can screen share. You could have because you can 3-finger swipe and then it shifts the desktop.
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes you can have just a black image or a blank image or just the logo. But even the logo is something to look at. So.
Right. Well, I remember, do you remember this, that Brad Jones got into a thing where, because, in Pro Tools, every track's a different color, but he would set it to where every track was just black
and white, because he didn't want to favor any.
He didn't want to be influenced by the color, having a preference for a color influencing the way he was hearing.
Yeah. I totally 100% remember that. And I remember looking at it and I was like, I don't think I actually personally give a shit about the colors on the screen, so I didn't sweat it. But I mean, there are some drab-looking colors there too.
Yeah.
And you know,
but I think
funny.
that might have inspired me to just, well, I'll just go one step further. I'm just going to turn this screen off. You know,
Yeah.
which you can't do when you're editing, but
right.
But yeah, but this all relates, I think, to kind of what we've been talking about, is the relationship between vision and hearing and color and shade and texture. I mean, in photography, you know, and I had to really get into this when putting my book together, because I had been used to looking at my photography on a computer screen or when making prints, which in those situations, the files exist in a color space, in the RGB color space.
Yeah.
But when you're printing, offset printing for a book, you have to convert them to a different color space, CMYK. And when you make that change, sometimes the images look pretty much the same side by side, but sometimes that radically changes the colors. So then you have to go in and readjust the colors to make them feel the way they felt in the other color space when they get printed.
Good Lord, that's like having to take your tape from one machine to another and like switch the EQ curve between European and US or something.
They're EQ curves. And the way something is EQ'd in one situation makes you feel differently than that same piece of recorded music EQ'd a different way.
Yeah.
These things influence your emotional reaction to experiencing that music or that photograph, you know. So I think working in photography has influenced the way that I mix, probably. You know, I can't say in very specific ways, but I think just in kind of a general attitude way, it certainly has. I think the two things inform each other in a big way.
So let's spin that back to another part of the music making, the poetry, the lyrics. Have you discovered the same thing? I don't want to talk to you about all of this, but I'll preface it with the question. I think this was one of the songs on Here and Nowhere. Can you count the rhythm of a secret time in the lifetime of a day? This is one of yours. Talk to us about how you come up with what the hell you want to sing about.
Well, that's still very mysterious to me.
Yeah.
And again, it really is a process of kind of both being present with your, you know, in the moment, and, you know, turning certain parts of your mind off while you're letting other parts of your mind be active. And I certainly, you know, I'm not a prolific songwriter. I love to write songs, but for me there's still a lot of mystery in where they're coming from.
Yeah.
You know, and I have a tendency to write music first. Sometimes I'll have an entire track kind of made before I commit to lyrics. And, you know,
I think it's because we share a similarity. When your skill set is the instrumentation, you know, when you're somebody, myself, I was like the utility guy in the band. I can pick up the accordion and figure this out. And I know you to be that person too. I think there's a default for us to find an easy fit into music situations where somebody else is up front on the mic all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're also great at harmonies, you know, so.
Right. My tendency is to kind of default, yes, to that sort of big picture
like supportive role.
Way of working, yeah, and arrangement, and already sort of like, you know, creating an environment for a song to emerge,
right,
rather than having a song and bringing it into a space and having people bring it to the light. It's I mean, but it doesn't always happen that way, but that is more of my tendency. So I kind of like to create a picture first and then fill in the lyrical part of it.
Right, so the picture is the music.
Right.
In that
but sometimes, you know, I'll with the music idea that I'm bringing, you know, a few phrases will be there.
Right.
A few phrases just organically happen at the same time. I have a great memory of just right around the corner in that room right there.
Yeah.
When we were working on the
Circles,
the Autumn Defense record Circles, which was our second album. And the first album from Autumn Defense was really all of John's songs. John had a body of songs almost finished that I just kind of helped him arrange.
John
basically.
is such a, I really appreciated his, I don't know if fastidious is the right word, but like very prolific. He's very intentional. Everything from his vintage suitcases that would be around the place.
That's true, yeah.
To the guitars he wanted to have around, the acoustics.
It's one of the things we really connected on.
Just handwriting.
A strong aesthetic, sort of attention to detail.
Yeah.
We really connected on that in the early days.
If you record music, podcasts, video, or dialogue, the brand new Isotope RX12 is one of the most powerful audio repair tools you can add to your studio. RX12 now features AI-powered scene rebalance, letting you separate dialogue, music, and sound effects for incredible control in post-production. The new Stems view makes stem editing faster and more visual than ever, while upgraded music rebalance and dialogue isolate deliver cleaner separations with improved machine learning. RX12 also adds trim silence, helping podcasters and editors instantly remove dead space and speed up long-form editing workflows. Plus, rebuilt de-bleed tools and real-time processing improvements make cleaning up noisy recordings easier than ever. From restoring damaged audio to fixing podcast interviews, guitar tracks, vocal tracks, and film dialogue, RX12 is the industry-standard toolkit, trusted by producers, podcasters, post-production engineers, and music makers worldwide. Go to isotope.com and use the code ROCK10 for 10% off.
But we made our second album, Circles, right here in this house where we're sitting.
That was a lot of fun, man.
And it's an incredible memory for me because it was really. I love the first album, and we had such a great time. That was
Green Hour, and I mixed that with you guys, didn't I?
You mixed it, and
was that at Alex the Great? Because I remember we also did stuff up at Engine in Chicago at one point.
The Green Hour was done at Alex. We did the first half of sessions for the Green Hour at Kingsway Studios in New Orleans
on an old CalRec console, I think, wasn't it?
It was the API, a big Daniel Lanois.
Maybe you just
API.
knew somebody who, because I remember there was a story about an old CalRec.
We had a CalRec at our other studio, which was kind of like our little clubhouse studio in New Orleans, where we did a few things.
And who was your buddy that we went to his loft in New York, also who had the CalRec later? Maybe
that was the CalRec from New Orleans.
But who's the guy? It was a cool guy that was
my friend Rennie Lopez and Roger Stevens.
Okay.
They had a band in New York that I was playing with, and actually I just played a show with them and G-Whiz from Autumn Defense last weekend.
G-Whiz is great.
We reconnected after all those years.
Shout out to you, G-Whiz. Haven't seen you in way too long.
Get him on the podcast. But we so where was I going with this?
Let's see. We were talking about
we have so much history.
You were talking about the not Green Hour, but Circles.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Green Hour. We recorded the first half of the Green Hour at Kingsway in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And then John moved to Chicago. I moved to Nashville. And that's when I met you.
That's right.
And then, kind of started hanging out over at Alex the Great. So we did the second half of sessions for the Green Hour at Alex the Great, which you engineered and mixed. And Brad Jones played bass on a few things, and Will Kimbrough was there, Molly Felder.
Yeah.
So, that was such an amazing memory, that was such a rich time here, and then when it came time to make the second album, you had set up
my studio here in the house. When I had to shove the JH16 tape machine, slide it up the carpet stairs to get it up to the second floor.
Right, because the control room was upstairs.
Yeah, and we had a bunch of us, and it was just so heavy. I've done that a few times where you're just trying to lift some heavy piece of gear up.
But John,
and it's like if you let go, somebody's life is going to
and you had a big console up there, and
Yep.
But we Yeah, we recorded. Yeah, the G-Whiz on drums was down in the basement.
Yep.
And then we were kind of set up over in that room right over there.
Yeah, the dining room.
The dining room. And I have a great memory of, we needed one more song because John had brought a handful of songs. I had written a few songs. But we were like short one tune. And I think it's one of the few times that John and I have ever done this where we just said, okay, let's write a song.
Oh, that's great.
And we sat right 20 feet from here and with guitars and wrote a song head to head. And it's still one of my favorite Autumn Defense songs.
Is that the one that you cut that way too? Because I remember we set up both of you just like facing each other.
We did.
I think the vocal mics were like SM58s or something like that.
Yeah, and it's a live vocal, and it's a song called The Answer. And we just performed it, and I did like some Mellotron string arrangement for it. But we just performed it at the 5 Spot last week.
No, I missed that because I think I hadn't gotten back in town
with live strings. You know,
amazing.
So yeah, it's. I just love the threads between all of this.
Did you have who was doing strings on that? Or who
at the show?
At the show, yeah.
It was Matt Combs on violin,
cool.
Austin Hoke on cello, Jim Hoke on woodwinds,
on everything.
Bass.
Jim Hoke on what do you need?
I would just look over and he'd have a different instrument. I was like, oh, I didn't even know you brought your
I didn't
bass
know you
clarinet.
owned a bass harmonica.
Exactly. And Kristen Weber on violin. So we had a quartet.
Yeah.
But those are great memories of working here in this house because. Do you remember this? We did the circle sessions, for maybe a week or something. And then I went home back to New York for like 2 days and then came right back. And we did the John and Laurie record.
Oh, that's right. That was so much
John
fun.
Stirratt and Laurie Stirratt, their record. So we did that. And then I was back here maybe a month or two later and we did the Jennifer Jackson record.
JJ.
So we made 3 records in this house like in the course of 6 months,
That was actually the closest I came to burning the house down. Because one time I had a little wooden bowl and I put a candle in it, which was a dumb idea to begin with. These are learning lessons when you're young.
And then we went to the bar.
And then we went out to dinner and the candle was still going and I came back and it was like it had caught the wooden bowl on fire. It's like, oh my God. But luckily we survived it. That was a lot of fun. And that was, when we were still... We had Pro Tools, so I had that Pro Tools Digio 1, which I still think was a killer. It was a killer tool. It was such a simple setup, but it was 16 inputs, which was more than a lot of the little boxes you could get back then, and it had low to no latency in it. So it recorded right into the computer. You'd have you just record right into Pro Tools. And it just made it possible to record that way. Do you think we were really aware of the sonic loss we were experiencing going from analog into that early Pro Tools worlds at that point? That's
a good question. I have a memory from that Jennifer Jackson record because, I was just learning about Pro Tools at that time. And, I think you kind of gave me some of my early Pro Tools lessons and I remember I had a bunch of stuff I'd recorded on 2-inch tape.
Yeah.
With Dolby SR that I'd recorded down in New Orleans, some of my own music that I'd done under the name Birdie on the Moon.
Yeah, with Richard Dodd.
Well, he
was associated with later.
Yeah, later he did some mixes of some of that stuff, but I ended up getting you to help me transfer that stuff into Pro Tools so that I could do my own mixes.
We had fun stuff to do, like can we adjust that tambourine hit a little bit, but don't line it up perfectly.
Well, this was a new world, and I remember there was something we were on the Jennifer Jackson record. We were recording onto tape, but then putting it into Pro Tools. Or there was some situation where we needed to do a punch, and Jennifer was really kind of nervous about the idea of punching something from Pro Tools back to tape. I can't remember what the situation was, but this was just all new. This was all new territory, and worrying that we were going to somehow, it was going to be destructive.
Right, mess it up.
because that was still how we were thinking, you know, in 2001.
It's because she hadn't worked with me yet. It was new, you know. She didn't know what I was capable of. She didn't know
the magic, the magic of a lid Shaw.
Watch me do a punch. Did you see it? Did you see it? That's how fast it was. Huh?
And remember, like, having to time punches on certain machines, you know, where it's like you'd have to punch just a little bit ahead
and get out just a little bit early. Yeah. And that machine that I had did not. I mean, I loved the sound of 15 IPS, so that's 15 inches per second, which means the tape's slower, which means when you do stuff, it puts a bigger. You have less room for wiggle in there and punching. And the machine I had, the JH16, didn't have any kind of nice, pleasant feathering, crossfading when you would do it. So. Right. But yeah, I mean, we were in that world of ADATs too. So we'd already been in that world for a while. So I think we were used to the idea of digital. I think that Pro Tools was just exciting. Mm-hmm. It was like the frontier, you know, digital stuff was the frontier of where we could go with it. Of course, then, you know, now you've got the experience to understand that sometimes you want to be like really careful about the, you know, the camera that you select and the lens you select, you know. Yeah. They're not all created equal.
Yeah.
You're also making, well, so tell us what else you're excited about as far as Autumn Defense right now. You guys are getting ready to do, you haven't done a tour in 10 years, is that really right?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't put out a record since 2014.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know this will go out later, but we just last month released our first album in 11 years.
That's awesome. And it sounds great, man.
Thank you.
It's good that you went and woodshedded for 11 years to like
we wanted to get that snare sound just right, man, you know.
Yeah. Because you made it sound great. And we haven't even talked about your studio yet. I haven't asked you about that. So.
Well, this new Autumn Defense record, you know, I do have a studio at home that's just my basement studio for overdubbing, and you know I don't really do drums down there, but I do everything else. It's the finishing space, you know, where I can do guitars and synths, and I've got my Whirly here and my Mellotron here.
Is that the name of the studio, the finishing space?
It's actually called Tiny Door Studios.
Tiny Door Studios.
Because it came with a very tiny door to get into. I'm not sure why that door
floor
even
3.5, is that what it was?
It's really small, but you know, and when I originally set that up, it was a transitional space because my producing partner at the time, Josh Shapira, who sadly passed away in 2020, he and I had a studio together in Chicago called the Mixon Administration. And I have no apologies for the name.
That's great, man. This is not a rough.
That's good.
So you could have
we never actually made business card, but I came up with the Mixon Administration, and as soon as I said that, and this is very Josh, his response was, "We're always recording."
Oh, there you go. That's great. That's great.
But anyway, you know, we worked together for about 10 years in Chicago, and he was such a brilliant engineer and so knowledgeable, had come up in the Chicago recording world, and a real engineer, you know, like yourself, you know, knew the real nuts and bolts. And so we had formed a friendship and a partnership, and built a small studio together that we worked out of. And then kind of a few years after building that studio and kind of getting a flow going there, I decided to move back to Nashville. I just felt like we had kind of done what we could do in Chicago at the time. And we were sort of beating our head against the wall in a way, like finding the right fit of artists to work with.
Yeah, what year was that?
This was 2014.
Okay.
And he was up for it. You know, he was like, you know, he'd always lived in Chicago his whole life. He was teaching at Columbia, and, you know, recording at Columbia in Chicago. But he was ready for a change himself, and saw the value in being in Nashville at that moment when there was just so much kind of bubbling up here.
Yeah, Nashville was really booming then.
Yeah. And so the idea was that, you know, I set up a recording situation in my basement because I have a nice basement. But we were going to build a tracking room, you know, outside of that. Unfortunately, that never happened.
By the way, I liked your style when you're like, because I have a nice basement.
Well,
I've got a nice basement.
No, I mean,
have you seen my basement?
I don't mean to, you know, to be that way about it, but it's a nice size.
Yeah.
Low ceilings though, so you know.
I think I remember visiting it once.
I think probably around the time I moved in, when I was like asking you, like, can I record down here? You know?
Right. Yeah.
And it's been great for me. I mean, it's a great space for me to do the things I do. You know, I have been hesitant about trying to do a full band or drums down there because the ceilings are low, and and we were making plans to build this other space, and he had bought a place that had a nice kind of like your space, like a tall ceiling back house. He got really sick in 2020, and we lost him. It was very, very tough thing to lose, you know, to such a close friend and creative partner.
Yeah, big time.
And somebody that I learned so much from him as far as, recording, and, you know, he was a real problem solver, you know.
Yeah.
But around the time that he had first gotten sick and we weren't able to work together as in the way that we thought we were going to, I started. I got asked to produce a record for a band here in town, and they wanted to make that record at Creative Workshop, Buzz Cason's place. Have you ever been there?
I think so. Creative Workshop, is that also the one that's in Heartworn Highways?
Yes.
Townes Van Zandt comes
Exactly.
through. Or no, maybe it's not. I can't remember if Townes was on that session.
No, I can't remember the artist that's...
But it's got the rough...
the wood, the
rough bark wood finish on the, on the walls.
They call it the Friendly Forest.
The Friendly Forest is awesome.
And it's an amazing space. I mean, classic 1970s recording studio. Amazing piano. The piano that was at the Ryman in the 60s. Amazing sounding piano.
Wow.
And, you know, Sphere console.
Oh yeah.
That was made for that studio. And it was designed, and I can't remember his name, but one of the great 70s LA studio designers. Yeah. That designed a lot of...
Was it like a Tom Hidley design or
yes,
something like that?
I believe that is correct. Yeah. And so it just has that feel, you know, and you walk in. I walked into the control room and I was just like, oh man, this is the place for me. This is my spot. Yeah. And we had an amazing time working on that project. And
how long were you guys in there?
I think 2 weeks. And Buzz Cason he wasn't involved in the record, but he was still, you know, hanging around. He'd be in the front office. And
it's been decades since I've spent 2 weeks on a record, or you know, in one sitting. Yeah, I miss it so much.
And it's a luxury. It's a luxury, you know. I think maybe we were in there for 10 days, but it was a nice, comfy stretch because the singer from that band had like a family connection with Buzz, and it was a good deal. And the engineer on the record is a great musician and producer himself named Teddy Morgan, who has had a room upstairs there and did a lot of sessions there. So he really knew the room. Yeah. And he and I connected pretty quickly. I mean, we had a great rapport from the beginning. He got great tones. And I just started bringing projects there. You know, if I had a production, that was my place. So and Josh and I got to work on some things there, working with Creamer, Philip Creamer. We did a couple of records there. And so when it came time for the Autumn Defense, after this long, you know, almost 10-year break, to start recording again, I wanted to do it there.
That's groovy, man.
Because I just felt like with the style of music that we make, it was the perfect combination of space and style.
Who was sitting right next to the wooden wood bark walls, the friendly forest during that?
John was usually kind of in that vocal. There's like a little
it's
booth
a vocal
there.
booth
yeah.
there. Okay, cool.
So John would be set up in there with an acoustic guitar and a mic, and I would be out on the floor near the piano so that I could kind of easily go between piano or acoustic.
What have you learned about favorite spaces for acoustic guitar? Is there such a thing? Does the guitar just sort of feel cool and different in everywhere you go?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't have any super hard and fast rules for that. You know, a good mic and a good guitar. You know.
Do you ever feel like the acoustic, like you like to hear the acoustic sort of bouncing back on the walls as part of it, in the way the drums can get reinforced by?
It just kind of depends on the walls, really. Yeah. You know, it depends on the space. One thing that I would like to learn how to do better, and you can probably teach me some things on this, is recording vocals and acoustic at the same time, and not having it be phasey and not having it be a little, you know, kind of having to lean on one or the other. Like which one am I gonna sort of sculpt,
right?
You know, and without hurting the other.
Are you recording your own music or other people's music in your studio, but you're having trouble figuring out how to get your mixes to sound great? Do they sound weak and distant or lack punch and clarity? Well, I've got a gift for you to help you take your mixes from sounding like basement demos to sounding a lot more like professional mixes. And it's my free course called Mix Master Bundle. This course will show you how to get pro-sounding mixes from your home studio with free and stock plugins and Pro Tools. And the best part is, these mixing techniques will work for you in any DAW, whether you're in Logic, Cubase, PreSonus Studio One, Reaper, or anything you can think of. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, and you can find the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. Have you done the James Taylor kind of thing? So you get like an old, I think it's a Sony, is it an ECM 50 or something? It's the lavalier mic, and it goes inside the sound hill.
I remember us doing that on the Autumn Defense.
I think I learned that from Brad Jones, sort of handed that to me, but I feel like that's come up elsewhere on the podcast. I know that the Sony mic that I'm thinking of was also the one that Bill Simzik says that's his secret weapon for the hi-hat mic.
Oh, okay. I remember that from our sessions, doing that. That was the first time I'd ever done that.
Oh, so we did do that on something
on the Green Hour stuff.
I haven't done it forever. I need to do it again.
Yeah.
You know? It's fun to just explore all those things, you know, looking for ways to do it. I've also done, I really like, felt like I wanted to solve that at one point too. And I decided that I wanted to, I was doing, oh goodness, I'm not going to think of Josh's last name right now, but with Ken Coomer, and we went over to Quad, and we were in the Neil Young room or whatever, the Harvest room.
Yeah.
And so to record, Josh, he sang and played guitar beautifully, gorgeous. And I was like, I don't want to screw this up with the 2-mic thing. So I just did, maybe it was a 67 or something like that. I just set a really nice 67 up in front of him, and I just balanced it until there was like both were singing into the one mic. And that works. And that had a beautiful sound to it, but it also has some challenges because the bass could get boomy sometimes, you know, so you have to watch out for that too.
I've started really getting into, got a pair of KM84s that I love the way they sound on an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
And they're pretty directional. Yeah. So, you know, you can really sort of focus them on the guitar.
I think it depends on the player. One thing I've learned, especially from doing so many at Bonnaroo, was the player they have to balance internally their voice and their guitar playing at the same time.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, sadly, we recently lost Todd Snyder, and he was an example of that when he came into my studio and sat down on the same vocal mic, the same guitar mics, same setup that the other people had been playing on, where I was like, how do I must be a terrible engineer. I don't know what to do. I'm flying flaters around, breaking a sweat, like those memes. And then Todd comes in, sits down. All of a sudden, I'm like, I'm such a badass. Listen how good that
amazing.
sounds.
I know, man. It's that. This is the thing. It's like there's still so much mystery in a lot of it, as to like, one thing's going to work for this situation on a Thursday, but it might not work on the Tuesday. And why is that? Why is that?
Like Pro Tools.
Don't ask too many questions.
It's like my computer.
Yeah.
Amazing, dude. Well, so we're basically at the end of this, and there's stuff we haven't talked about. Dang it. Tell us a little bit about Robin Hitchcock. I'd love to talk about Wilco, but we've talked about Wilco plenty of times before, I think. But I think you're recently playing with Robin Hitchcock, and he's somebody that I have always admired.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of his for a long time, and we both moved to Nashville about the same time in 2015, and I think I ran into him in the cereal aisle at Turnip Truck, and he was kind of like, "Oh, Pat, good to see you, man. What are you doing?" And I'm recording tomorrow at Brendan Benson's place. Do you want to come and sing an ooh and an ah? And
that's great.
Next day I'm over at Brendan's place, ooh ah, on a Robin Hitchcock song. That's and great. I remember feeling like this is why I moved back to Nashville. Yeah. This is exactly why I moved back here. Because that wasn't happening in Chicago. Yeah. But go to Turnip Truck, run into Robin Hitchcock in the studio with him the next day. And those kinds of things started to happen more and more.
That's cool, man.
And so that was, that's a good that's a great sort of memory of kind of my phase 2, my Nashville phase 2.
Yeah.
And I worked with him, played some shows, played bass in his electric band. Doing some shows, doing a little tour out west, and then worked with him. A record that he made during the pandemic, I kind of helped in the early stages of that record, and the kind of the early production stages of that record, and then he took that to England and finished it up. But it was just, that when I think back on the pandemic period, as sort of anxious as it was, I was actually pretty busy. I kind of ended up with photography, like really leaning into the photography. Yeah. But I worked on a handful of projects that I really enjoyed.
Because you're probably off the road for a minute.
So off the road, and people, was kind of mixing and producing things, from a distance, and doing some work that I really liked, and it also kind of just got me really in touch with my basement studio.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
And it was also during that time that I revisited my synth record and kind of completed it. I'd had these 4 tracks done from 2017. It wasn't, and then I was like, oh, I should release this because it affected me, and I just felt like I shouldn't just live on my hard drive. I'll put it out into the air.
Now, how long were the songs on something like that? How did you have a framework for making each song with that?
There wasn't really. I mean, it was just, I just kind of went with the moment. I didn't have anything planned. I didn't have anything written. I just started a session, and just whatever the first thing I would do, I would kind of like just start. I just put my hands on the keyboard, and whatever kind of happened, that would be the foundation.
That's great.
Or I might make I might sort of land on a little musical theme or something that I would then loop. But in
synth stuff, it can really benefit from effects too, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's like sometimes that's where the sound ends up being.
Yeah.
So did you find that the synth was analog, but the benefit of the digital world for effects was a good combo, or did you sort of really also discover ways to use real reverbs and delays and try and combine it that way?
I think all the effects were probably done in the box very quickly. I would just kind of set up a long verb or a delay or something. But there's a funny story about that. When I did revisit those sessions, 4 or 5 years later to complete it and put it into an album form, I needed to do 2 more songs. So I did the exact same, gave myself the exact same parameters, made 2 more pieces so that it could be a 6-track, 45-minute body of work. And I had told myself I'm not gonna edit any of this. I'm not gonna go back and fix. But there was one track of the first round of things where there was just something that bugged me I can't remember exactly what it was. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna tell anybody, but I'm gonna go back in here and I'm gonna tweak this one thing. And I went into that session, and I had an Echo Boy plug-in on.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah, I use it on everything, and it was on kind of like the very first thing you hear in the track was this little synth figure with a lot of this Echo Boy on it, kind of creating the thing. And I pulled up the session exactly as it was, and it sounded different.
Wow.
I mean, it was the exact session as what I had printed several years before. Nothing had changed from, I looked at the timestamp, the whole thing. Well, I created that mix at this exact time. Here is the session back up from that exact time.
Yep.
But the plugin was acting in a different way.
Some sort of update or something had happened in the meantime.
I could not get the same delay thing to happen no matter what I tried. It was just some weird fluttery thing. And so that forced me to go, you know what? I can't touch this. I can't
touch this.
I can't. Hammer time. I can't touch this. I cannot mess with this. It was like the universe saying, hey, you said you weren't gonna mess with this, so we're not gonna let you mess with this.
Awesome, dude. All right, so as we close out here, I got 2 things. One is I found my poster signed from Big Star. Look at that, Rock Stars. Isn't that amazing?
What a night. What a night.
And you guys, I don't know if this is a common thing people do, but I really appreciated it. When you bought a poster, you guys had pre-signed them all, and I bet that's a ton of work too. But they were like, you didn't have to go. You could still go wait in line and say hi and everything, but you didn't have to,
right.
sweat it so much. It's like you got your signed poster, which was amazing. And then the other one is this was I asked put out for questions a little bit, and I got a question from my buddy Megan, and he says serious question because I think he really wants to know if you're related to somebody named Cat Sansone, the singer.
I don't know Cat Sansone.
Cat and Pat. I don't know, maybe one day.
I wonder where Cat Sansone
Fort Jackson and Jill. We play at the holiday.
Is that 1,100 hours? Is that 23 hours?
That, like 50 hours?
No, I don't know Cat Sansone. I know there's a harmonica player from New Orleans named Jumpin' Johnny Sansone.
Ooh.
That a lot of people. I thought you were going to ask me that if I was related to Jumpin' Johnny, which I'm not. But not that I know.
Not
of.
even now. What about now?
I don't know. Maybe now. I don't know.
All right. So let me go to this question then. This is the one I've asked you before, and I love to ask all the guests. We get to take the Wayback Studio machine. You go back in time, and you find young Pat, and you say, first of all, man, you're not going to lose your hair. All good. Here's the single most important thing you need to know to be a rock star of the studio yourself one day. What advice would you go back and give yourself if you could?
Oh, my gosh.
Hang out more with Lidge.
Hang out more with Lidge. That's such a tough question. I think I would tell myself just to enjoy the path,
Yeah.
I mean, I've always felt really at home in the studio. And I think I'm very lucky that I had those teenage experiences of getting to grow up in the studio,
Yeah, big time.
And I do wish that when I was because I just kind of let him do, and the studio didn't have like a ton of amazing gear, but it did have a MCI 24 track and a MCI consoles,
Nice,
70s era,
man.
like yours.
Yeah.
I wish that I wish I had been a little bit more curious earlier about the technical side of things. I was a little shy about it, so I didn't really learn much about the technical aspects of recording in those days. So I'd probably tell myself, hey, ask more questions.
Pay attention.
It's okay.
Burn your fingertips a little bit. Pick up that soldering iron.
Exactly. That is definitely what I would have told. What I'd be telling that kid right now.
Nice, man. Nice. Well, how can the rock stars find out more about you? Where would you like them to go if they want to check out your music? Go look at your artwork. Do you have a home base? Well,
I mean, I have a few home bases, which is a little messy, but my photography can, I have an Instagram that's Sansonic1. That's
nice.
kind of where I put a lot of my photography work, and I have a website for my photography.
Long before Silk Sonic Rockstar. Sansonic was the original.
That's right, Sansonic. And my photography website is just patricksansonephotography.com.
Groovy.
So you can easily get there. Autumn Defense is out there where all music lives these days on the socials and on the streaming, and
we'll have links to the playlist in the show notes too.
Awesome.
So you can go check it out.
Yeah. And then I also do a radio show that is a weekly radio show that's nationally syndicated. It's more stations are starting to pick it up, but it's out of WYXR in Memphis. It's called the Baroque Down Palace.
That's great.
And every week I play music from the 1960s and 1970s that incorporates orchestral elements into the arrangements.
Oh, that's great.
And it can be, I play rock, I play pop, I play soul, folk, and all genres in between or combinations.
Like Sulk.
So yeah, Sulk. You and the puns, man. I love it.
They're bad. They keep going. Do you find when you're doing that as a DJ, you have enough of a knowledge base to always have more stuff to do, or has this led you on paths to discover whole new?
Oh, absolutely. Music? I mean, I thought I knew it all, but I don't know it all.
That's great.
I'm constantly finding out new stuff, and I like to talk about the arrangers themselves because we don't, generally we don't know their names. And, tracks that are huge tracks, big parts of people's lives, songs that they've known their entire lives that might have these incredible string arrangements or great woodwind parts that are a big part of the song. We don't know the names of who arranged those. So I like to at least mention their name if I can, and then like learning about, say this arranger, Carl Marsh, or Jimmy Haskell, who did Ode to Billy Joe, like look up what else they arranged. And sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know they also arranged that. Or who is this artist? I've never even heard of this. And then I'll dig into that and find things that I've never heard and that I really like. And so I try to play things on the show that are both super well-known classic tracks by the biggies that we all know and love, and then put that right up against something very obscure that I've only just discovered myself, and kind of give it all space. Yeah. But all thread, but the thread is that it incorporates something from the orchestral world, whether it's a full orchestra or one flute, or a harpsichord and an oboe, just anything, as long as it has one piece from the orchestral world in there, you can get into the Baroque Down Palace.
That's awesome, man. I can't wait to check it out. Maybe if you send us a link or something, I don't know if it's a linkable kind of thing, we can include that as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Super cool. Well, dude, thanks for hanging with us, man.
Yeah, man.
Always a pleasure, dude. Rockstars, thank you for listening. If you're just on the audio, come on over to the light. We're on the videos now, the video platform. So you'll find us on YouTube or wherever else we are in the future. And if you enjoyed it, please hit that like button so that your best buddy, who you haven't even met yet, but would love to meet, also gets to see this. And then we, connect all the dots there and subscribe so you get more. And then if you've got questions, I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments. I'd especially love to hear, you talk about, let us know what kind of stuff is your favorite about, in the Big Star world. If you got any favorite songs, if you want to know what guitars were used on what, or whatever questions you have, just drop them in. I'll make sure that we find an answer for you one way or another.
You know how to find me.
I'll know how to find Pat. And if Pat doesn't know the answer, we can get an answer somehow, I'm sure.
This has been a blast, man.
Yeah, man. Always a pleasure, dude. But this was especially fun.
So glad we got to do this again.
All right, dude. I look forward to seeing you around the studio.
Man.
See you soon.
All right.
Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever now, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music. Recording Studio Rockstars would like to give a big thank you to our fantastic sponsors who make this episode possible. Isotope, Native Instruments, SAE Institute, Spectra 1964, Grace Design, and Picker. Check out the Spectra 1964 website for factory direct budget-saving prices on the STX 600, 100, 100D, and BBDI DirectBox. Check out my studio profile on the Picker app on iPhone or Android, and remember to take advantage of our special coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off any plug-in purchase at isotope.com or nativeinstruments.com. And don't forget, you can start mixing right now with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. If you enjoyed Recording Studio Rockstars, please check out our sponsors using the links in the show notes below. These are all things I highly recommend for your studio. They're going to help you make your best record ever. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, because it's a great way to help support this show. And I'd also like to thank our fantastic team here at Recording Studio Rockstars, Vlad Weselchenko and Daria Tupesis. Thanks so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.